merry band of OSATers all, and welcome to this latest podcast episode from me, Nathan Taylor. I'm Sockmatician on the web, on Ravelry, Instagram, Twitter, and right here on YouTube. I'm back. I'm just like Lisa Stansfield, for those of you who remember. I've been around the world and I don't know who I am now. I've been, as you know, absent from our shores for quite some time. The last time I sent a podcast out, I had just completed the South Island trip and I was as far as Wellington. Well, since then, so much has happened. I can't even begin to describe what's been going on in my life. I've been home I've been home from San Francisco for about 10 days. I've spent 6 of those nights in my bed, maybe 7 now. And it's never ending. And that sounds like I'm moaning at all. I'm not at all, I promise. I'm really, really not. I am the luckiest man on the planet. How are you? Before I sort of burble on and go straight into the quick roundup. I can't even get through that without laughing. It's not going to be a quick roundup, is it? As I'm sure you know. It's going to be a fairly lengthy one, so buckle up. I think we might be here for the long haul. As you'll see, I'm sporting a brand new mohawk, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a different shape from the last one. It goes all the way down to the back of my head, a little point there. The last one stopped at the back of the crown there. And do you know what? It's getting quite good reviews. Last time I cut my hair in a rather sort of daring and outre fashion, I got quite a lot of people saying, I don't like it. Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I much care. It's my hair, just like this is my podcast, my rules, my hair, my style. And I really do like it, so please keep any negative comments to yourselves. I'm sure some of you will say, oh my God, Nathan, you look ridiculous. I'm okay not hearing that. Thank you very much. That's got that one out of the way. So after Wellington, having stayed with the amazing Isabel, who looked after us so well. Isabel, I don't know if you even are a watcher, but I miss you. I really, really hope you're very well. We had such a wonderful time, Sam and I, staying with you, and I hope your curtain rails are staying where they should. It was not a condition of us staying there. It really was not. But Isabel had been doing a craft room. In fact, it was the room that I sent the podcast from. I recorded it in last time. And the last thing that she really needed doing before she could really move in properly was getting some curtains put up. This flat is unbearably hot. The heating's on and I've turned it down at the thermostat, but it's taken a little while for everything to equalise. So if I start to get a little bit sweaty or a bit uncomfortable, you'll understand why. Why don't I get some sleevage up and then we can get ready to go. So we put the curtains up, Sam and I. It was the least we could do after Isabel had so kindly and graciously offered her home to us. Me, she might have known a little bit. I don't know whether she was really very aware of who I was beforehand, but Sam wouldn't have had any clue at all. We might have been awful people. We still might be. I haven't heard back. I hope we did okay, Isabel. I hope we were gone very well. Actually, it was a really lovely time. So Sam and I we went to the Weta Cave and saw where all the Peter Jackson movie stuff is created, and had a little tour around there, which was great fun. Then we picked up a hire car from Wellington. Now, for those of you who don't know, Wellington is in New Zealand. That's the bit I'm talking about at the moment. It's on the North Island, but it's down the south of the North Island. Our next stop after Wellington was up in Taranaki, which is over on sort of the west coast of the North Island. And we were staying there with Leanne, who is people... Eagle-eyed, long memory, those of you out there will remember some years ago now, Leanne sent me a beautifully stitched blue sock project bag. It was really, really lovely. So she and I have known each other quite some time through Instagram, but had never met in the flesh. Of course, she's on the other side of the planet. We stayed with her and her husband in their wonderful house. Sam and I drove up through... we went up the coast and we stopped off and we saw Paula at her shop in Carpety. Hello, Paula. And I bought a big ball of yarn and I've made something with it, and I'll show that later on. Paula had taken one of my classes. Where were you? Was it in Wellington? It must have been. Yes, it was in Wellington. where we were under the auspices of Tash Barnveld and her shop there. I met Paula in one of my classes there. Gosh, I'm so hot, I can't really think very straight. Can't do anything straight, I'm a gay man. She had just given me her card, and she said, if you're going up to Taranaki, she said, you'll probably be driving straight through Kapiti. And that's where my shop is. She said, if you have a few moments, please pop in, we'd love to see you in the shop. I think she probably, hello Paula, I don't want to put thoughts into your head, but I think you probably didn't think for a second that we would. Well, we did. We were driving through Kapiti and we said, well, this is a nice time to stop. It's about an hour and a half outside Wellington. And we went in, and it's a brilliant shop. It's the shop, knitting shop and lotto. There's some fantastic things there. I'm not going to go into all the details of stuff that I bought here, there and everywhere, because most of it is still either in Sydney or it's in transit on its way back to me. I sent a big bag home with Sam, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So back to Kapiti, we had a lovely time there, and then we drove on up. And now Sam and I, we're kind of playful people, and we do enjoy just going off and doing things. We didn't have a plan. We were just driving through. One of our friends, Fiona, had said back in Napier, she said, oh, have you heard of Bulls? B-U-L-L-S, there's a town called Bulls. And I said, no, we haven't. She said, well, you may be driving through it. And we did. She said, well, the town has gone to town with puns on the word bull. So nearly every shop in the town has another sign. It's got what it is, but it's got another sign with the town crest on it, with the bull on it. And they are the most ridiculously toe-curlingly awful puns. There's the police station which says constables. And it's got a mural outside of policemen, cows faces. There's the fire station, which is called Extinguishable. There's the old jail, which is called Inescapable. Really lovely one, which is the Returning Servicemen's Association, sort of like a veterans club, which is called Respectable. There's library, which is readable. McDonald's, which was consumable. I sort of wanted to go round, and I'm going to get into trouble for this because it's worth telling for the joke. I apologise to anybody who has a faith. This is only said for fun. The church was Believable, and there's another church called Forgivable. But it was the McDonald's one that prompted me rather than the church one, but then I went off on a roll. I thought it would be quite fun to go round in the middle of the night and put up the true signs. So on McDonald's, say, inedible. I'm going to get so much trouble. Please don't write in. It's just for the sake of the pun. On the church, I wanted to put gullible. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to dismiss anybody's faith. I happen not to have one, but I absolutely respect others that do. But for the sake of the pun, it was worth making. Sam and I stopped, and I said, this is Bulls, this is what Fiona was talking about. And we stopped the car. We were already a little bit behind schedule. Who cares? We had no real plans. And we spent probably about an hour and a half running around the town, laughing at on the signs. There's all the signposts on all the street corners have signs that tell you where all the social club is sociable. It was never ending. Gosh, the one I was trying to think of was a shop that sells body products and lotions and fragrance things, and it was sensible. Well, that's a sort of double pun because it's about sensible, but it was good. We had a laugh. And then we were driving up the coast a little bit further, and we saw a beach, and we thought, let's go on the beach, let's go and paddle in the sea, because it's the Pacific. It is the Pacific, isn't it? Or is there another name for the bit that's between New Zealand and Australia? Maybe some kind of strait. Anyway, an ocean we'd never paddled in before. So we went onto this beach, and because New Zealand is so volcanic, this was a black sand beach. Now, I don't mean black like little crystals, I mean black dust. It was like soot. I've never seen anything quite like it. If you rubbed it between your fingers, it felt smooth. You couldn't feel the grains of sand at all, and it actually was so fine. It was getting caught in the tread of my fingerprint. It was really, really amazing. But it was littered as well. So this black, solid, smooth black surface, which was littered with these white shells. Absolutely beautiful. And we just sort of, we'd see something, we'd go, and we'd been driving for a little while, and Sam would say, look at that sign, and I'd already had my indicator on. Then we would just go and we'd do things. I have to say, Sam, if you're watching, it was, and to everyone else who is watching, it was the most extraordinary bonding thing. Sam and I have always been close. We've all been really, really close, and this last year has really brought us together. Sam going through a good divorce, and me through a health condition diagnosis. So we've really, really had to be there for each other, but we have been. And it's not that we needed to, we wanted to be there for each other. But this has just really turned our relationship into something much deeper than it ever was before, even though we didn't think it could be any deeper than it already was. If you see what I mean. We were on the same wavelength. We didn't row, we didn't get cross with each other. We've got the same sense of humour, which helps because we grew up, you know, thinking the same things and doing the same things. It was just a joy being with her all the time. So then we got to Leanne's place at Taranaki, and the class we held there was actually in her home, which was really, really nice. She set up a big table. She's got a beautiful home. It's really, really gorgeous. I can't even begin to describe it. It's just a really lovely home. It feels cosy, it feels lived in. It's got this lovely wood-burning stove in the main living space, huge open-plan kitchen. It's the kind of home I'd like. Really would. Leanne, you're very lucky. I say you're lucky. You've worked hard, you've lived a life, you've put in your dues, and of course that's all paid off, but you're fortunate, shall we say. And I'd love to have a home like that. My home at the moment is a bit of a disaster. It may not look any different now, the angle you're looking at, from how it normally is, but why don't I just turn the camera around a little bit and see how it looks. We've had awful trouble with rain. You can't really see what's going on, but can you see sort of this area here? That's all bubbling paper. It's just absolutely disgusting. We've had horrible problems. Ben has mostly while I've been away, with the rain just coming through. While I was away, I felt so sorry for him. I woke up one morning and found this video from my husband. We've had a lot of problems with the roof anyway, but a little while ago the landlord sent some people round. Again, poor Ben had to deal with it all. He had people traipsing through the house at 8 o'clock every morning, waking him up, and they poured all sorts of settable stuff down our toilet bowl, and it's all crusted on the side and we can't scrape it off, so that's ruined. And they didn't do the job. We've been up there since, because that rain that you saw coming through in the living room, literally just behind the camera where it is now, I think anybody who understands anything about roof tiles knows that roof tiles have to overlap. These don't. They're next to each other with a sort of 3mm gap, and there's nothing. So when it rains, it just comes straight through. So hopefully that's being fixed. Oh golly. So that's why I'm very envious of Leanne's home at the moment. Ours is a bit of a shame. We've been here for 13 years, actually 13 years this and a week, or last weekend. So we just had our 13th anniversary, so I guess unlucky for them. From Taranaki, we then drove back up to Auckland. Now Auckland is where we entered New Zealand, and we were staying with Helene and Doug and her son Elliot, and Mira we didn't see so much. We only met Mira once, who's her daughter as well, who was mostly with her boyfriend. And my ring is from Mira, which is lovely. It says Mai Te Aroha, which means sent with love in Maori. And Helene, who, just to remind people, is the reason why the trip happened in the first place. She'd sent me some of her beautiful Sikkim-based yarn. She's a wonderful dyer, Happy Go Knitty, the dyer and yarn supplier in New Zealand. And she had sent me some yarn, and I talked about it on the podcast, you may remember, and she was thanking me for my lovely words, because I'd said nice things, because it's lovely yarn, and said, you should come over to New Zealand, there's a lot of people who'd love to meet you. And I said, well, if you know anyone who can make it happen. And she got back to me and she said, I'll do some digging. And within 24 hours, had fixed me up with Maria Busky, who runs Knit August Nights, and the rest is history. It is now history, actually. It was ahead of me for such a long time, and now it feels odd that it's sort of gone past. I'm not sure I like that very much. And so it was really, really strange going back. Everything we had done so far on our trip had been about new experiences and seeing new things, meeting new people all the time. And this felt like coming home, because we'd spent, I think it was just 2 nights, it may have been 3 nights with Helene and her family on the way down, before flying down to Napier to kickstart everything properly. But going back, it all felt so familiar. It also was really bittersweet, because lovely though it was to see Helene and family, we all got on so well, and her sister Mia was there as well for the whole duration, and was still there. She lives in Sweden, but had come over for Cannes as a avid knitter and a dyer as well in her own right, and an all-round super human being. I'm very fond of Mia. She happened to still be there, so it was all like just like we'd left it nearly 3 weeks before. But it signalled the end of Sam's visit, and that was really, really tough actually. We arrived there, and then we spent 1 night, I think, and then Sam had to be sort of bundled off in the shuttle to go to the airport the next day. And the shuttle comes along, and it comes to your house, and it's got a truck on the back for your luggage. It's a really good system. It's quite expensive, but it's well worth it. They come to your house, pick you up, and take you to the airport. It's marvellous. And I really got very upset putting Sam onto it and waving her off, because not only did it mean that was the end of our time there together, and what we'd done was so special, and we'd done so many things which I've already spoken about. It also meant that for her it was over, but I wasn't going home for another 3 weeks. I still had a couple of days. I had all my teaching to do in Auckland, and then I had a couple of days there. Then I was going to Melbourne, and then Sydney, and then San Francisco. So I was away for another 3 weeks, and suddenly I felt I was doing it on my own, and it didn't feel like it. I sort of wasn't sure I was up to the job, if you know what I mean. We'd been such a team. We'd been shared a room in Napier for 5-6 nights, however long we were there, and we'd been so close together, literally geographically so close together. And suddenly I was packing her off to fly to Singapore and then fly home all on her own. And listen, she's capable lassie, my sister. So not much phases her, but I wasn't there to protect her anymore, and she wasn't there to protect me either. So it was very strange waving her off and saying goodbye, but we did, and off she went. She needed to get home. She's got a dog and new things happening in her life that she wanted to be part of. And children. My nieces and nephew. So then I had the teaching in Auckland, and all that went extremely well. We were teaching at actually Doug's offices where he works. There's a beautiful, like a big conference room, and we had a lounge space outside. So we turned it into a pop-up shop for Helene to sell some yarn. I think she did rather well actually. And then I taught 3 classes over 2 days or 4. I really can't remember. I taught a lot of people a lot of things, and a lot of people learned some stuff. That's all I can say about my time away. So then I flew on to Melbourne, and I had an amazing time in Melbourne. Some of you may have seen already the podcast by George Forgan-Smith. I'll link to it here, but actually I'm going to post it. I've got the raw file. I'm going to post it myself, and so you can all see that as well. Now, he is a male knitter. He's also an HIV doctor, so we've got a lot in common. And he has a podcast called... I'm so tired, George. I'm so sorry. It's Men Knitting, I think, and is a new knitter, but really, really avid, keen learner of new skills. And he took actually none of my classes in Melbourne, even though he lives in Melbourne. He took all of my classes in Sydney. His partner lives in Sydney, so we got on very, very well. He'd contacted me and said he wanted to chat to me about my craftivism and how my openness about my HIV status and trying to reduce the stigma and all of that kind of stuff. He wanted to chat to me about that, so we'd got in touch, and he said, "Do you need a lift picking up from the airport. Oh, I'm not going to say no to that, thank you. So he picked me up from the airport in Melbourne. We went back to his place, did the recording, stayed for dinner, and then I went off to my... Who was I staying with? Oh, I was staying at a hotel. How can I possibly forget? I was in Melbourne, and one of the people who is part of the Melbourne Queer Stitch and Bitch group, Dave, had said to me, well, if you're looking for a hotel in this right sort of area, there's the Laird, it's above a gay bar. I was like, oh great, marvellous, I'll fit right in. It's so funny, I loved it. It's quite a... I wouldn't say disreputable, it's got a good reputation. I wouldn't say sleazy, I wouldn't say seedy. It's just a really, really active gay bar where there's lots of things going on. And it's got some rooms upstairs, and the decor was so funny. I had Tom of Finland posters all over my wall. Now, most knitters will probably think I meant to say Tom of Holland. Anybody who knows who Tom of Finland is will know why that's funny. Tom of Holland is named after Tom of Finland, I believe. Tom, I must ask you actually. It must be a link there. But Tom of Finland is he is famous for drawing lots of homoerotic like pencil drawings and art, very, very detailed, anatomically correct drawings. And I had those posters all over my walls, and the box for the spare blankets was covered in black leather. It was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I think I might be right in saying that some of the rooms at the Laird Hotel might be rentable by the hour. That was only 4 days. It's quite some hours. Oh, it was brilliant. I had a fantastic time. So I did my classes there at the Yakety Yak Studios. Yakety Yak is a furniture store, homeware store in one of the big shopping centres, High Point Shopping Centre. And I was under the auspices of Nicola Prested, who very kindly stepped in when a few other things fell through for me in Melbourne, and she organised the classes. And the classes take place literally in the shop. It sells furniture, and it sells handmade soaps and ornaments and nicky-nacky things for the home. And at the back of the shop there's this big long table, and I took the classes there over 2 days, which was great. Had a really nice time doing that. And then... afterwards, I had a day free, and I thought, well, I must explore what Melbourne has to offer. And my friend Abby, you all know Abby who sits here sometimes. Abby's an avid Neighbours fan. And I was in Melbourne, which is the home of Erinsborough, the fictitious what? The fictitious suburb where Neighbours is set, iconic Ramsay Street. I went on the tour. I did a little tour of the Neighbours. Now, I have not watched Neighbours for 20 odd years. I have no idea who's who on it at all. But I still went. And we got on this little bus tour in the middle of Melbourne. We drove out for like 45 minutes. And the guy who was our driver was also our tour guide. And he was, hey kids, it's like really, really over the top. And exhausting. Must be exhausting to be him. It was kind of exhausting to watch him as well, but he was great fun. And he's very knowledgeable about his stuff. But anyway, we went out to the actual location. I think it's called Pin Oak Court. It's tiny, and guess what? We couldn't go up it because they were filming out on the street. So the bottom of the street was all barricaded off, and we just had a look up, and I saw someone I didn't recognise standing under a boom mic. A lot of trucks with satellite dishes and cables and stuff. Nothing. I am standing at Pin Oak Court, and this is the very real Ramsay Street. They're filming at the moment, so we can't really go up the street. But if I take you to the barrier here, you'll probably be able to see, if I zoom in, a very, very familiar house at the end. I can't zoom in, but there it is. And then walking across here, make sure I don't get someone else's photograph, but walking across here, we've got some filming of Neighbours actually happening. Ahead of me, you can see the boom mic wandering up and down. That's as close as we're allowed to get because, as you can see, the road's all closed off. I'm
standing at the end of Pinoak Court in the suburb of Nunawading, and this is the actual Ramsay Street. We've got to be very, very quiet, not like this little child, but we've got to be very quiet because they're actually filming Neighbours up here, so you can probably see a bit of a familiar house. If I walk over this way, then I'm also able, child's an absolute horror. You can see this house here, it's the Kennedy's house, it's really, really exciting. So we're heading over to the studio shortly, so we're having a lot of fun doing that, alright?
I mean, I did recognise it. It looked familiar. One of the streets. This is the photograph I got. One of the did look familiar from the. I don't know whose house it was. Anyway, we then went to the studios, which is about a 10-minute drive away from there. But we weren't going to the studio. We weren't seeing anything happening. We were just out on the back lot. So we went to this place, which is opposite the garage, and went to this bus stop, and we just sort of. I don't know, it sort of didn't mean anything to me at all.
So here I am on the back lot of Neighbours at the Fremantle Media Studios, and here's the Grease Monkeys and the antique shop, and behind me here is the workshop. That's really apparently very exciting because as we go in you can see through the windows and it's all in there ready to go. Come and have a look, see. In there, can you see? I can get you in through there, we go. It's all there, all real. How exciting is that? So here we are, and it's brilliant because next to the hamburgers and the antiques, just there, you've got this phone booth here, and all the signs and all the adverts in the back have been created by the special effects people. And there's a bus stop here which has got an Erasmus Times table. It's hilarious.
Then we went back in the bus to the headquarters, and part of the tour was that we would meet a bona fide Neighbours star. I was like, who's it going to be? Probably someone I'd never heard of. Actually, it turned out to be a character I did know, I did remember. Libby Kennedy. Now, she's probably not called Kennedy now, that's the character. Kim Valentine is the actress. And she's been on the show since she was 17. She's not currently in it, she sort of comes back and forth. She's got a teenage daughter and a 2-year-old son. She's got her hands full. She's also doing a play. But she came and met us and signed postcards, and we had photographs and stuff with her. She's absolutely delightful. And I said, Kim, my friend Abby is the biggest Neighbours fan. She'd absolutely freak if I could video a little message from you to her. So I filmed, anyway, here it is. Abby, you're not going to believe this. I've got a very special person who wants to say something very special to you. 1 second.
So much, Abby. Oh my God, my darling, where are you? Why aren't you here? Please come next time, and big love.
Thank you so much. Bye. And I made sure that she was so gracious. She was really, really lovely. I liked her enormously. It can't be easy doing that kind of stuff. These sort of public meet and greets can be a bit exhausting, and it's all, I'm now on display. But there's a nice woman in there, I think. And that sounds like she was hiding. No, I don't think she was fake or anything. I know what it's like, and I know how hard she was having to work. But within that shell of the public face of Kim Valentine, when I'm being Libby Kennedy, there's a really nice woman there. And I said to Abby, right, okay, I'm going to WhatsApp video call you because I've got something to send to you, and I'm going to email it to you, and I want to watch your reaction while you see it. She didn't know I'd done this at all, and when she saw me talking and handing over, her eyes widened, and she just started screaming. It was. She said that day she'd watched it about 20 times. She kept going back to her email and watching it again and again and again and again. So do you know what? That made it all worthwhile. It was great. And then I flew to Sydney. Sydney was amazing and challenging and all sorts of things, but mostly amazing. I was there with the wonderful Deb McDonald from Skane Sisters. Unfortunately, Janine had a sort of family crisis and had to fly out, so I wasn't able to see her, although we'd met in Napier, and I met Deb as well. So I knew who they were. And Deb is a hugely wonderful human being. She's she's capable, she's practical, she's sensible, she's balls. She's all of these things, but she's so kind and so generous as well, and she just made my time there so amazing. I was treated like a proper superstar, and the first back in Melbourne, I went to a meeting with the Queer Stitch and Bitch, Melbourne Queer Stitch and Bitch group as well. I had a wonderful time meeting them. It was Jess and Dave who put it together, and met a whole host of really, really interesting people. I actually was there knitting with these guys for about 7 hours one afternoon. We had an amazing time, thank you. And Dave taught me how to do Tunisian crochet. I've done a little bit before, but he taught me much better. So then we started off in Sydney with an immediate trip to the Sydney Opera House. Now, I have an affinity with that building, even though I'd never been there before. I used to be obsessed with Australia. I used to really, really desperately want to go as a child. And we were doing a school art project, and we were doing pointillism, with the dots, mixing coloured dots to blend different colours in the palette of the eye. And I did the view of the Sydney Opera House and Harbour Bridge as my pointillist painting at the age of about 14. I spent a very, very long time doing it, and I've always wanted to see it. So lo and behold, Deb picked me up from the airport with Tina, one of the team members at the Skane Sisters shop. They're family members really, not team members at all, certainly not staff. All wonderful, wonderful people. And we drove straight to the Opera House and had a drink, sitting underneath it, and had a wander around it. And it was just, it's big. Often when you see things which are kind of iconic, you think to yourself, well, oh, it's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. Cute Statue of Liberty, take it out. But actually, it's huge. It's really, really large. And I didn't realise it's 3 separate buildings. There's 2 side by side and a little one out the back. So you only ever get to see it really, that side-on view. It's not meant to look like shipping sail at all, apparently. It's just acoustic shapes, and I can't remember. There is a story, but it's not apparently nothing to do with that. It's been added on to it later on. But it's stunningly beautiful. And the one thing that really surprised me about it, it's not white. I know, right? It's actually a sort of yellowy, beige, cream. It's really, really interesting, and all the tiles are slightly different colours, and there's texture on it. It's not smooth and white as I thought it was at all. It's beautiful, absolutely stunning. But I also have an affinity for it for a different reason, more recently. Some of you may know I got married on the television in the form of a film musical for Channel 4, which was BAFTA nominated. The finale of our wedding was a song called Love Is Everyone, and it's the phrase I have tattooed on my arm here, musically, the chorus there. And one of the things that featured in it was messages of hope and support from around the world. And there was I didn't have the chance to look into who they were, but there was a gay singing group, Sydney Gay Choir, Sydney Gay Men's Chorus, something like that. I'm not sure which group it was, but they were singing at a certain location underneath the bridge across from the Opera House. And I desperately wanted to find that spot, so I did later on. So I feel I got this affinity. I was missing my husband a lot by this time. Ben was not with me. I hadn't seen him for nearly 5 weeks at this stage, and I just really wanted to get to that spot and record myself singing "Love Is Everyone" just for my husband. So I'll cut these 2 things together. I'm going to mute the sound on the video because every time I put sound, even if it's stuff that I wrote and I wrote that song, I get stung for copyright infringement. So I'm going to mute it, but I'll show you the footage. So here you can see it. There they are. They're all singing there, and it swings around, and you can see exactly where that is. And this was my version. And this is what I did, so you can see I was in exactly the same spot. Pulling down fences and tearing down walls. Love is everyone. The law has the right to dictate who we love. Love
is everyone. Don't waste time, you've only got one life to live. If you're gonna fail, fail and fail hard. Oh, raise your game, don't walk away. Kites fly highest against the wind, and missed opportunities are harder to forgive. And love is everyone under the sun. Love is everyone.
That was at the end of my trip. I'm jumping ahead of myself. That first night there was a dinner. A dinner had been... No, I lied. There was a men's knitting group. Oh, Deb had organised a men's knitting group at Skein Sisters, the shop, in my honour, and there were about 10 or 11 or 12, I don't know how many exactly, people came and went. All men, all male knitters came along. So all of you who came along, thank you so much for making the effort to come and see me. I enjoyed meeting all of you. The interesting thing was, this was a one-off, and a lot of people assumed that it was an ongoing thing, that they were the newcomers to. They didn't realise it had just brought together for that one event. So I think, and I hope, Deb was saying that she might want to continue and have a men's knitting group there. And it's not about being exclusive, it's about embracing different aspects of the knitting community. So I think it's a really worthwhile thing, and everyone really enjoyed being among other men who were also knitters, and you could get to know each other and talk about your knitting. The same way we do with the ladies, but men and women play differently. They do. Women, a mixed gender group is very different from a single gender group. Ladies, I'm sure you know that as well. You know, sort of when there are men in the room, you play differently and you talk about different things than when it's all exclusively women. Well, it's the same on our side as well. So there's very much validity in all forms of knitting groups, I believe. And that was amazing. And then we had 2 days of classes, and there was also a dinner that had been put on. It was a kind of have a dinner with Nathan Taylor, and I was the keynote speaker. So it looked amazing. This was the setup. I've Instagrammed this. You've probably seen it already. It was really strange to have that much of a fuss made out of me. I'm just somebody who sits at home, knits a bit, burbles at my iPhone, and posts it on a free hosting site called YouTube. And yet there were people there who were paying good money to spend an evening having dinner. There was like 35 people there. It was a huge table, and I was sitting in the middle, so I didn't get a chance to talk to everyone individually. I'm sorry about that. But I did stand up, and I gave a speech. I didn't really know what to say. Deb wanted me to just talk about my knitting journey, but my knitting journey is my life, and so I talked about my life, and I talked about how I really want to empower people to become stronger and more confident in themselves through knitting or through their own actions, and how we're always good at hiding our talents and our skills, but knitting is a talent and it's a skill, and it's all relative. People say, well, I'm not very good, I can't do lace shawls. Well, someone who can do lace shawls might never have knitted a sock. Someone who can do a garter stitch scarf only gets looked up to by somebody who can't knit at all. You know, there's skills within skills, there's levels within levels. You have skills, we should be proud of them, and we should celebrate them and what we can do. And of course you can use knitting as metaphors for life in all sorts of things. You sort of how you go on, you don't want to sort of go back on things, no one wants to, you can't revisit old ground. If you do, you feel like you're treading water until you get onto that nice uncrinkly yarn again, all those kind of things. So I brought all that into it, and it was I think I rambled a bit, probably more ramblified than I do sitting here, because I had the pressure of people right there listening to me, but it was a really nice occasion, really lovely. And then I was staying in an Airbnb that a friend of Deb's, nearby where Deb lives, and called Kath. But I wasn't in Kath. I hadn't met her. I didn't meet her until the day I left. And she has in the bottom of her garden, it's like it's a self-contained building. It's called the garden shed. It's not a shed at all. It's lovely. It's got a little mezzanine level with a ladder goes up to it, and that's where the bed is. And underneath there's a wet room, a shower room, and there's a little kitchen area and a lounge, and it's completely self-contained. It's lovely. and I was staying there, having a lovely time, and then I was just packing to check in the night before I left to go to San Francisco the next day, and I lost my passport. Yes, I'm not proud of this. This was a absolute humongous catastrophe. I turned that place upside down. I remembered that I had it with me when I flew from Melbourne to Sydney. I didn't know whether I would need it because it's an internal flight, but I had it in my hand, so I knew that getting onto the plane in Melbourne to fly to Sydney, I had it. I hadn't seen it since. I called Deb. She came around. She said, "Well, let's look at the shop just in case it's dropped down behind the sofas there. It's the only other place you've been, really." Because we went there straight from the airport, so I could have easily had it in a pocket. We went there, nothing. Hold that thought. Sorry about that. The phone battery was dying. I'd forgotten to plug it in beforehand. So I was in a terrible panic. I was going to San Francisco for Vogue Knitting Live, which was a massive deal. 6 classes in 3 days, most of them sold out. A lot of people were relying on me, and also it's a big deal in my career, and I was thinking this could be horrific. I might never work never work again if I don't get there. Thankfully, I had planned and factored in 2 days arriving in San Francisco, then I had 2 clear days before I had to do anything. So I did have 2 days grace. So I managed to get on the phone or online, and I managed to change my flight for no extra money, actually, for 2 days later. So that was good. So it means I had 2 days to play with. But I spent those 2 days not enjoying Sydney. It's so horrible knowing that the plane I should have been on was taking off and going without me, and I was still stuck in Sydney. Oops. That didn't go so well. I'm just going to pause for a moment while I put my camera setup back to rights. Sorry about that. Not really going so well, is it? Talk about the disasters of my journey. I'm having disasters videoing today. Oh, it's going to make editing a pain in the bum. Yeah, so knowing that my flight was disappearing without me and I should have been on it, I was beside myself. But I spent 2 days dealing with the British consulate in Sydney and trying to... It was very complicated. They were very happy to issue me with a temporary emergency passport, which I could have got it within 1 working day. Easily in time to do my new flight. But the problem was, I was entering the US on the ESTA visa waiver program, and that doesn't work with temporary. It's attached to your passport, and I wouldn't have it. And you can't get one for. It's not a case of just getting another one. It's not available for temporary passports, emergency passports. So I was having to apply for a visa, and I was having to do that through the US embassy in Sydney. Now I have to say, the British consulate bent over backwards to help me, and the US embassy couldn't care less. They treated me, they weren't flexible, they didn't seem to have any care for the plight that I was in, the stress that I was under, the possible ramifications for my business, for my career, for my life, for my bankruptcy. It could have been absolutely horrendous. And the British consulate was saying, we won't issue you the passport until we know that they will grant you a visa to get in, because the temporary passport that we have to give you is flight itinerary specific, and so if you're not going to be flying on that one, we'll have to issue you with another one just to get you straight home, and you have to book a flight to London because you wouldn't be able to enter the US. Oh my God, it's getting so horrible. So they were being very helpful. They said, we won't issue that one until we know from the US Embassy that you can. So I had to go through hoops to try and get an emergency appointment with the US Embassy, because the first official appointment was in 3 weeks' time. Vogue Knitting Live would have been long gone and over by that point. I then had to apply for an emergency. I had to book that. It was the 16th of October. It still wouldn't have happened. I had to book that appointment for the 16th of October, and then apply for an emergency one, saying why I needed an emergency one. Thankfully, I was granted that, but I wasn't going to get it until the 2 days' time, which was the day after my second flight should have gone, and the day I should have been teaching in San Francisco. There was also no guarantee that they would A, grant me the visa, or B, be able to do it in that day so I could fly out. It was just, I honestly was going through heart attacks. Then, the day before I was due to fly, we're thinking I'm still not going to be able to fly. I found the damned passport. I had turned that place upside down, genuinely, forensically looked through it. There was one place I hadn't looked. Upstairs in the mezzanine, in the corner, there was some spare bedding. I'd assumed it was spare bedding. It wasn't spare bedding, it was bedding I'd taken off. It was a pillow I'd taken off and placed on top of my passport. It's the one place I didn't look. I found my passport. And I looked at it and went, well, that's no good to me. It's been cancelled now anyway, because going through, when you book an appointment with the British consulate, there I was with Deb in the shop, it said, by pressing confirm, you are cancelling your passport and making it null and void. So I was like, well, I don't have my passport, let's do it. I pushed the button, so I was convinced it was done. So anyway, I spoke to this wonderful, helpful lady at the British consulate who really, really was in my corner all the way through. I spent the whole day in their office using their computers trying to set up appointments and everything else. They were fantastic. And she called to see how things were going, and I said, on the off chance that a cancelled, lost passport becomes found, can it be uncancelled at all? She went, what? I said, I found it. She said, well, we haven't cancelled it yet. I was like, oh, it was just the best news in the world. I think I burst into tears on the phone there and then. I'd assumed that it was cancelled. What they hadn't done, because in their wisdom, they were brilliant, because they were waiting to see if I could get the US visa, they had everything on hold. So they hadn't cancelled my passport. She said, let me just check, I'll just check the database, make sure nothing's gone through, there's no stops or markers placed on it at all. She checked for my number and everything was fine. I said, so I can just get on my flight tomorrow, like none of this ever happened. She went, yeah. Lesson learned. But then, what lesson? I did everything I could except not find it 2 days earlier. I've learned that these things are difficult. I've learned that these things don't always go so well, so I've learned, I've learned to be more careful next time, because I don't want to go through that again and end up not having my passport. If I didn't find that passport, I don't think I'd have gone to San Francisco at all. Anyway, that one day I then went to the location where I found that thing, and I found the spot with the bridge and had a wonderful time doing that, and I was able to put everything to bed. The thing that was upsetting the most was I couldn't bear the thought that I was having such an amazing trip and it would end so badly. If I wasn't going to get to San Francisco, it could have caused all sorts of problems for me in the future, financial and by reputation. And the idea that, oh gosh, it would have just ruined everything. It would have been awful to go home on a temporary passport with flying home from Sydney, spending hundreds of pounds trying to get an extra flight. It was just, even thought it now makes me feel sick. But all's well that ends well. So I flew to San Francisco. I was like, bye-bye Sydney, thank you very much. And then, beg pardon, welcome back to Highgate with the bump. And then San Francisco happened, and I arrived in the morning, about 7 o'clock in the morning, because it's very odd. I left Sydney at 10 o'clock in the afternoon, 10 o'clock in the morning, sorry, on the 18th of, no, sorry, on the 20th of February. I don't know where I am, 20th of October. And September. I'll start that again. I left Sydney at 10 o'clock in the morning on the 20th of September 2018. And I arrived in Sydney at 7 in the morning on the 20th of September 2018, 3 hours before I'd left Sydney. Oh, I got to San Francisco 3 hours before I left Sydney, it's crazy. But it was that evening, so I checked in my hotel, it was that evening I had to I had to go to a teachers' meeting and an orientation and stuff and find out what I was doing. I didn't leave that building for 3 days because the hotel I was staying in was the Hilton on O'Farrell Street, just near Union Square in the centre of the centre of Tenderloin in San Francisco. And that's also where the classes were. So I literally went down one lift, across up another lift to another tower, and did my classes. Had an amazing time. I met some wonderful people, saw lots of people I knew as well. Lovely Tommy, who's one of the San Francisco SF Men Knit group. We met last year when I was there, and he's so charming, lovely. He sat in one of my classes, and he was so kind. On the third day, he knew I was flagging a bit, and he just turned up at the end of my first class. This was class 5 of 6. And he just had a little emergency parcel of lunch because he knew I wasn't going to get much of a break to go and do things. He had to, I was able to, so lovely. Tommy, thank you so much. And then sparked something else. At the end of my shaping the future of double knitting class, which is the next steps, all the shaping techniques and all the increases and decreases, 2 people stayed behind afterwards and we got chatting. These people were one that I knew and one that was new to me. Lexi, who I knew already from the year before. We'd met in San Francisco in Imagine It when I was there before. Actually, the same day I met Tommy. And she's making this wonderful double knitted jumper, and it's taking her a long time. So I've seen it in various stages of its incarnations. Various incarnations of its progress, I should say, and she's nearly done. She's done the whole body in one sleeve, and it looks amazing. It's similar pattern to my dither scarf. So it's those sort of gradations of different dots that blend from one colour to another. Really nice. And Simca, so it's Lexi and Simca. Simca had taken my class. Simca, I don't know much about you really. I know you're a mathematics undergrad, and I know that both of you have incredible knitters and wonderful brains. We started geeking out. I'd started the class by teaching a lot about knit nerdism, which is my new philosophy on knitting, going back to basics to understand the fundamentals of what knitting is so that you can make your knitting behave however you want it to. And I'm going to be starting teaching classes on that subject later on this year. If not by the end of this year, certainly going to be teaching them by Wellington Live in New York in January, but I think I'm doing it in Minneapolis as well. And I'm really getting involved in this knit nerdism. It's brilliant. How many ways are there to slip a stitch? More than you might think. That's how I started. And anyway, we were geeking out about stuff, and in discussion, we came up with what we were convinced was a new type of decrease. Spoiler alert, it's not. It already exists. But we came up with it ourselves through discussion and through necessity. I've always been obsessed with the idea of a single decrease that doesn't lean. Because your knit 2 together leans to the right and an SSK leans to the left. It's kind of all you get with single decreases. And yes, there's the centred double decrease, but that's a double decrease, and I wanted a single decrease that doesn't lean. And we started thinking, well, maybe rather than 2 into 1, how about 3 stitches into 2? So where there were 3, it results in 2, and it wouldn't lean. I'm thinking, is this possible? Turns out it's very possible, and we showed it to lots of different people there, because Lexi knew who's her knitting guru. She said if she doesn't know it, it doesn't exist, and she didn't know it. I've spoken to other people as well and saying, have you ever seen anything like this? And it's like, no, never. I spoke to my tech editor and she said, no, I've never seen it either, but I'll do some digging. And she found it. I don't mind though, because, where is it? I've got a little swatch here, I'll show you a bit more about it. We were going to call it the ALNASI decrease. We had a name for it and everything. ALNASI because Lexi is short for Alexina, A-L, Nathan, N-A, Simca, S-I, ALNASI. We were going to put our names to it, and we were going to design a free hat pattern that we would launch on the world to share our gift. We had big plans, I tell you. None of this matters because we had so much fun doing it. It was still really worthwhile, and it's spawned something really rather lovely. This is the decrease. This is the swatch. Can you see at the bottom here? I've very definitely got 3 columns of knit stitches, and let me take it nearer to the camera for you. So I've got 1, 2, and 3, and then out of which the centre stitch sort of puts its arms around the 2 side stitches. and stops being a column of its own, and then the 2 stitches go up. So it's completely and utterly lean free, completely symmetrical, really easy to work, and really, really attractive, and really rather useful. So we started talking about how we could put this together into a hat pattern. Well, knowing that it wasn't therefore going to be something that we could give to the world, with the blessing of Lexi and Simca, I'm going to be releasing it as a pattern for sale. Because I've furthered our discussions, and I've sort of taken it on a lot further and developed it myself. It was just a shame. We were going to have a little WhatsApp group. We were going to do all sorts of things together. We were thoroughly going to enjoy developing ways of using this wonderful new decrease. But there are other things I've got on the go, which might or might not be new. I've got a 1 into 2 increase. 1 stitch becomes 2. But 2 stitches come out of 1, so it's not like a knit front and back or anything like that. It's actually the V of 1 stitch has 2 V's coming out of it. If you've seen that, please do let me know. If you've seen anything like that, please do let me know. I'd be really interested to know. So the ALNASI hat, I'm still going with the name because it really does rely very heavily on the discussions that the 3 of us had, and I want to honour them in that tribute. We didn't want to go into the whole setting up a partnership and divvying up funds and things like that, and the girls said, no, you've done the work, you go, do it. So I'm going to. But this takes me on to kind of, okay, let's circle back to the ALNASI hat, and I'll show you that in finished objects, because that's coming up later. So we had an amazing time doing that. I really, really enjoyed it. Simca and Lexi, I adore you both, genuinely. That was, that little hour and a half discussion we had when we got so excited was genuinely one of the highlights of my entire trip. I loved it. And I would happily sit down and geek out with you over knitting stuff any day of the week, any time you like. So let's do that again, please. Next time I'm in San Francisco, I'll look the 2 of you up and let's get together, and the 3 of us will drink hot chocolate and come up with amazing things that the world has already seen. Oh dear. So that was, then I had a couple of days in San Francisco just to enjoy the town after Vogue Knitting Live had finished, which was brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Oh, I was on a talking panel as well. I gave we were on the main stage and runway area in the big marketplace. They had events happening all the time, and one of the events was a talk called Designers of Process Around the World. And the 3 speakers were me, Anna Maltz, who is Sweater Spotter, and the lady behind Marl Isle, who I've spoken about quite a lot. She's wonderful, I love her. And Amber O'Brien, who is an Australian designer who designs really lovely shawls and wraps and things. Really, really nice stuff. And the 3 of us were chatting and doing all that, so that was part of Vogue Knitting Live. And then I had 2 days to just chill out, and I went up to my favourite place in San Francisco, Corona Heights, which is where it's quite a hike up to the top. It's just this peak in the middle of, right in the middle, just above Castro Street.
Like I've never known it before. It's so strong. It's coming right off where that mist is coming from, and I feel like Michael Jackson singing Earth Song. I'm sitting at the top of the windiest I've ever known. You've probably heard a word of this. This is doing wonderful things. This is the first time I've ever had the opportunity, mohawk going on the side there, the first opportunity I've had in my life to be at the top of Corona Heights Park. Nice thing to say. All by myself. There's the mist rolling over. Oh gosh, the wind actually hurt my ear then. That's the weirdest thing. I'll turn you around to this side, past the sun there. Look at that. It's like, there's the Twin Peaks views there. It's like being on top of the world.
And I walked down Castro Street and ticked some boxes, because of course Ben and I had our honeymoon in San Francisco, and so for me it has lots of nostalgia. and I met some nice people and spent some time in their company and just getting to know people outside the knitting world, which was also very nice. And then it was time to fly home, and I flew home, and I was exhausted, and I was home for 6 days when I flew off to Belfast, and I've just flown off. You may remember earlier on this year, back in end of March, early April, I went over to do some classes over there at the Glen Gallery Crafts shop, and it's a collection of farmhouse buildings that have been turned into the house where Frances and Doreen live. Marilyn's their other sister who works as well, but she lives elsewhere. And there's the shop, which is a big collection of outhouses that's been put together. It's a huge shop. It's probably the biggest in Northern Ireland. And then the little cottage. Little cottage for me is the bedroom and kitchen, bathroom in it. And they look after me so well. Frances and Doreen, well, all three of them. They really, really care. They're lovely, lovely, big-hearted women, and I will happily go back again and again. We had 2 lovely classes, and then I flew home day before yesterday. What's today? Day before yesterday, and then took a taxi over from the airport to Ben's parents' house where he was, and we sat and we watched Strictly Come Dancing, and it was back to earth, easing me back into the life that I need, which is the family and the friends that I've missed so much of this past summer. Travelling is wonderful, coming home is better. Gosh, that upset me. It's true, it's really, really true. I've had an amazing time, and I treasure every single one of the memories. The stressful ones too. It's all good. It's all good experience. And a week today, I'm flying off to New York for Rhinebeck, so there'll be more travels to update you on then. But yeah, it's just, as we got back from Ben's parents yesterday evening, this afternoon, and he's gone off to work today to rehearse Brass. He's directing the production of his show Brass at Mount View, which is the drama college where he trained as a director. Although he wrote the show, this time he's directing it, which is lovely. And I've got a million things to do this week. Tomorrow it's the knit night for the Bloomsbury Knit Work, which is at my HIV clinic, and I'm really, really pleased that that's happening. Gosh, so that's the roundup. Here I am. Sorry, it's gone on forever, but you probably knew that. So let's talk about some tangible things. What's on my needles? Actually, do you know what? I'm going to start with FOs. Let's do FOs first. Because I've got several. One of them, as I was flying back from San Francisco, the yarn that I had bought, big ball of chunky yarn that I'd bought in Paula's shop in Carpety in New Zealand, I'd started various different things and frogged, and started a hat and frogged it, and thought, you know what, I'm just going to knit a big cowl and see what happens. I thought I'd need to do some shoulder shaping, because I wanted to sort of like sit all the way around here and then come up into, which you don't have to at all. This is the cowl. Let's just shove it on for you. It's an enormous, great big ruffle-necked thing. It's incredibly cosy. Anyone who follows me on Instagram will have seen it. It's called Sockmatician. It's the easiest pattern in the world. It has 4 stages to it. This is the photograph that I Instagrammed with the pattern on it, because here's the story. I wanted to finish it before I got home from San Francisco. I was finishing it on the plane. I cast off as we were descending, and while we were sitting on the tarmac waiting to disembark, I was standing there still knitting furiously and casting off, cast off, cast off, cast off. It's 120 stitches, cast off, cast off, cast off. Did it. Managed to get my taffeta needle in my teeth like this as I left the plane, and I had on the way to baggage claim, I was sitting there weaving in my ends, so it was absolutely done. So I was able to photograph myself wearing it. It's just a tube, but it sits so nicely. It's chunky weight yarn, 6mm needle, something like that. Cast on 120 stitches, 2x2 rib until you've almost run out. I mean, I managed to. I don't even know how big the ball was, to be honest. But it's that big. It's about 12 inches tall. Just fold it back on itself, shove it over your head, and you're done. And it's so cosy and it's so delicious. It's New Zealand wool. It's nothing particularly special, but it does the job. It's got real structure to it. The ribbing gives it that shape, and it's really, really rather special, and the simplest thing in the world. So I shown a photograph of it, and people were saying, "Oh, is the pattern coming soon?" It's like, I can't put a pattern out of this. It's a ribbed tube. So it's, yeah, literally cast on 120 stitches, join in the round, 2x2 rib till you run out of wool, cast off. There you go. And it's astonishing, people say, what wool? Chunky wool. How much wool? Enough. What size needles? The right ones. It really doesn't take much thinking about. I have to say, it's incredibly cosy, and I really, really rather like it. I will wear it a lot. I already have done, in fact. So that's that. That's one FO, which is marvellous. I really liked. Yeah, it's just, the yarn is just, it's got a halo on it. It's got a bloom loads. It's just 2x2 rib with I think I did a long tail cast on and a standard bind off. Simple. Simple as. Simple as, man. Bro, as they say in New Zealand, simple as. So, what's off the needles as well? The ALNASI hats. I wanted this hat to be really, really customisable. I want it to be, even though I'm not giving a new decrease to the world with Lexi and Simca, it's an unusual decrease. It really is. I'd never seen it before, and let's show you again. There it is. I'd never seen it before, but it's incredibly useful and really decorative, and I like that. So I wanted to put together a hat. The first one I did was with some yarn that I literally went into the marketplace and bought some DK weight yarn immediately. I wanted to get a light colour because I knew it was going to be a delicate structure. Now the interesting thing about this hat, I cast on straight away. It's called Neighbourhood Yarns. It's just I think it's just 100% superwash merino. It's really, really soft and lovely. It's gorgeous silver colour. Now the thing about this, because it's 3 stitches into 2, you can't then stack them on top of each other unless you either get back up to 3 stitches, which negates the point of it being a decrease, or you take a stitch from the side, either that side or that side. So in order to have a line, even though it's one that doesn't lean, you have to sort of zigzag your decreases like that if you want a vertical line of them. And it creates this really very, very pretty texture. Let me show you. Here is the line of decreases. Isn't that rather pretty? It's like a sort of delicate lacy cable, although it's not cables and it's not lace. It's just, you can see there's one decrease, there's another, there's another, there's another, there's another, and it just zigzags up like that. So because I wanted to showcase the decreases as a decorative thing, obviously I had to balance that with increases, and so I decided, rather than putting them here at the side and having flat knitting in the middle, I decided to put the increases here in the centre, which gives this lovely zigzag effect. So the increases skew the columns off and the decreases pull them back into line again. And mess up my hair royally now, but it's a very, very pretty hat, and because, oh, it's lovely, isn't it? Because of this, because these lines are vertical, there's no spiralling arms at the top. The hat crown looks like this. Isn't that rather special? So you can see it's like the segments of an orange. There's no spiralling, they just go straight up into the centre. So obviously at a certain point where I wanted to actually decrease, I just stopped doing the increases and the hat starts to get narrower and narrower. So I put on this one a turned up cuff. Now this I like a 2x1 cuff. So as I was knitting it, it was 1x2, so you could then turn it over and have that 3x2 on the outside. But of course, you might want a hat that you don't want to turn over. So I thought, well, let's make, this is not about the hat, it's about the decreases. So let's make the hat really fully customizable, and let's do lots of different things. So that was in a DK weight yarn. I've got some worsted weight yarn, and I've made this one. Exactly the same size, exactly the same. I mean, it's beautiful, isn't it? Oh, it's just gorgeous. What's different about this one is the cuff. The cuff here, as you can see, is a 1x1 twisted rib, but it's doubled over. So I did a provisional cast on, knitted twice as many, fold them in half, and knitted the provisional cast, the loops from the provisional cast on once I'd done that in with the rest of the hat. And it's really, really lovely. This hat is so comfortable and so cozy, and this doubled over brim is something that I may never want to make a hat without ever again. So this is going to be as part of the pattern as well. So I was thinking, this looks really, really lovely, and you really do get this the detail of the I can't call it the ALNASI decrease. It will always be the ALNASI decrease. It doesn't seem to have a name. I'm going to call it the love heart decrease, because it really does look like, when you've just made it on your needles, if I show you between my thumbs there, it really does look like a little love heart, because you see how it sort of spirals around itself, that light green stitch there. Can you see that? Just makes it a little love heart. So I'm going to call it the love heart decrease. It really lends itself to plain colours like this and to stocking stitch, but I thought, well, how about if we put it on a pearl bed and really let those I said ALNASI decrease, the love heart decrease pop out. I didn't have enough of this to make a full pearl bed version of it, so I got some rainbow coloured minis. Now I know this looks like it's my yarn, it's not. Some rainbow coloured minis, and I didn't want to do them in pearl bumps. So this is a version of the hat which starts off pearl, has rainbow striped version. It's got the same doubled over decrease brim, and you can see on the inside it's so neat and tidy. And because there's no cast on edge at all, there's absolutely no rigidity to it whatsoever. Beautiful. But at the crown, I've gone back to doing the ALNASI decreases in stocking stitch, but over a pearl bed. And it really pops. I absolutely love that. So again, there's this one here. So this is all, I mean, I've been obsessed with these hats, and I've been making loads of them. This, for obvious reasons, I love beyond all measure. A friend of mine said on Instagram, as a friend I went to drama college with actually, not a knitting friend at all, he said, how much do you want for me to commission you to make one of those rainbow striped beanies? He said, because my favourite beanie I gave to a man who was homeless last winter. He was freezing, and I just wanted to give him my hat, and I miss it. He said, so I want to commission you to make one. And I said, for that kindness and generosity, when I've finished photographing this one, it's yours. I couldn't charge him for that, for goodness sake. It's bits of old scrap yarn that I've had in the house. It cost me nothing and took 2 afternoons to make it. I'm not going to charge for that, good lord, no. So, but what I still hadn't done is a full pearl bed version of it, and I want to release that as part of the pattern as well. So the whole thing, rather than have, so the stripes are in stocking stitch, but the grey top and bottom is in pearl stitch, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm currently working on now, and here's the other version. So they're all very, very different. They all are. So this brim has no ribbing on it whatsoever. It's the same doubled over effect, same lack of. It's just so gorgeous. This hat's going to be amazing. I'm really, really looking forward to this one coming together. It's Malabrigo sock yarn held double. So I've got the brown and I've got this white, which I just held together to make the brim. And then as soon as we go into the main body of the hat, I wanted the colours. I wanted more solid colour, because I want the light is about the decrease, not about the colour. So I've just gone with the brown, and I'm holding that double now. As you can see there, it is holding twice. But already you can see, it's hard because it's dark, but you can see how the ALNASI decrease, the love heart decrease, come on Nathan, wake up, is really, really popping out on the, I've only done 2 repeats there, but there you go. It's really popping out very nicely. And that's going to come together at the top, looking just like that. I'm really, really looking forward to getting this one done. I've never been one for holding yarns double really before, although I have to say that this is a DK weight grey, but the rainbow minis were sock weight, and I held them double, and it worked really nicely. I just wanted to get the effect. So in terms of yarn weight, it's so forgiving. This is DK, it fits me. This is worsted, it fits me. This is DK and fingering weight held double. This is fingering weight held double. All done on the same size needles, all done with the same number of stitches. So it's a hat, it's knitting. As Melanie Berg said to me, it's knitting, you just have to trust it will all work out in the end. And that's the best advice. In fact, I won't go into the details here because it will be a paid for pattern, but that's one of the things about this pattern only works because of that piece of advice that she gave me. So I'm really, really enjoying the working of it. I'll show you how to do an ALNASI decrease actually, because I'm just about to do one now if I start the row correctly with a purl one yarn over purl one, and then I'll get to that point and I can show you. It's basically, you're working 2 single decreases but into 3 stitches rather than 4, and that's how it works. So I'll show you now. 4, here we go. It's the wrong colour really for it, but can you see these 3 stitches here are the ones I want to decrease into 2. I'm going to do a knit 2 together into stitches 1 and 2, but then instead of slipping them both off, I'm just going to slip off the first stitch there, 2 strands, and then I've still got the second stitch on the needle, and then I'm going to work an SSK into it, and there you go, that's it, that's your 3 stitches into 2. Really, really simple, really, really effective, and thoroughly lovely. So yeah, I'm enjoying doing everything with this hat. I want to make ALNASI hats. I think everyone in my family is probably going to get some version of the ALNASI hat for Christmas this year. My dad's already bagged his one. So that's my finished objects and leading into what's currently on the needles, the pearl version coming soon. I love these colours. What's also on the needles is this bad boy, which is getting longer and longer and longer and longer and longer now. I'm still loving it. This is the one that I lost, don't forget. I had such a disastrous time in terms of keeping hold of stuff. But this is the double knitted lace scarf, which is getting to the point now where it's kind of scarf length. It's not long enough yet, but I've still got plenty of yarn. This is the Wollmeiser yarn, and they come in 150 gram skeins, but this is how much I've got left of each. So I could probably double the length of this scarf, I think. I haven't actually weighed these. I'll weigh them and then I'll see what I've got left. So at the moment this is probably 4 feet long. I love it so much. 4 feet long, and I've still got this amount of yarn left, so I could probably make it much longer. I need to get cracking on it. I want to do lots more knitting on it. It's a slow project because it's just labour intensive. Double knitted lace is quite labour intensive stuff. Now you'll remember, the last thing I want to show you before signing off today, you'll remember this scarf, the slideways scarf. It's my latest release, and if you don't remember it, go out and buy it now. It's very, very simple to make. I had so much yarn left over from the 2 skeins of each colour that I bought. It's only 100 grams per skein, DK weight. It's the Ericanite British Blues, 100% blue-faced Leicester. I bought 2 of the yellow and 2 of the grey. I used about 1.3 of each, and the scarf, because it's quite a narrow scarf, it got very long already, and I didn't want to go much longer than that. So what I'm doing is I'm releasing and putting together the companion hat. Oh, I've just pulled it off the needles. Bear with, Paula. I'm releasing the companion hat to it. It's the slideways hat, and it's all off the needles, and it'll be on in a moment. But it's made with the leftover yarn, so I'm hoping that'll make it a much more attractive prospect to buy yarn for the scarf, knowing you can make the hat as well. I'll release it with a bit of a discount. I think I can do this on Ravelry. If you've got the hat already, you should be able to, sorry, if you've got the scarf already, you should be able to get the hat at a discounted price, or if you buy the 2 together, then you get a discounted price as well. And here it is. So basically it's got this design running around the brim and going up around the hat like that. If you can see, it's hard to make out because I'm only on the first repeat. So there's the slideways scarf, if you like, going that way, and then here they are 1, 2, and then on the other side 3 and 4, and they'll be working their way up, coming to the centre of the crown that way. And on the inside, of course, you get the opposite colours, because this is double knitting and that's how I roll. I'm really enjoying making this, really enjoying the process. It's a fun hat to knit, and yeah, it's just, knitting life is good at the moment. I'm trying to prioritise knitting a bit more than I have done so far this year, because I haven't had a great deal of time to do any knitting, and I'm really getting my mojo back. I'm really enjoying doing it. It's a very interesting thing. I've been so busy with admin and trying to get all the paperwork for the travelling sorted out, I haven't really had a chance to do a great deal of knitting. Now, I really enjoy knitting. That's why I've made a career out of it. And because I've made a career out of it, I actually have to do some knitting. So I realised I was prioritising everything else for two reasons. Leaving the knitting till last for two reasons. One was that I wanted to clear the slate so I could just relax and knit. Bad idea. The slate never gets cleared, you just have to find space for knitting. And the other thing was, I always feel guilty when I'm sitting knitting, knowing that there's an inbox full of stuff that needs to be done. And it's now my living. It's how I make a living. I knit stuff, and I have to be able to knit stuff. So I've come back from my travels thinking I'm going to prioritise 2 days a week on knitting. Not admin, not social media, nothing. Knitting. 2 days of the week will be admin and getting all my travel plans and emails and responding to people's requests for pattern support and stuff like that. Booking classes, all that kind of stuff. And then the 5th day will be hopefully writing up the stuff that I knitted on days 1 and 2. So Monday, Tuesday knitting, Wednesday, Thursday admin, and Friday pattern writing. And I think that's going to be a really useful way to spend my week. It means I can get up and I can not worry about having to empty the inbox. I was getting to the stage where the inbox I was still working on trying to empty the inbox at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I wasn't in any fit space to knit. I wasn't creative. As a result, already I feel a great weight lifted off my mind. I'm saying that stuff can sit there. It has to. Self-care. So I'm really enjoying my knitting time at the moment. I haven't had a great deal of time to do it. It's only the 2nd week home, but it's going to make life a lot easier for me, and hopefully make my output a lot more, which means there'll be more stuff for you guys to knit as well. So wish me luck on that. It's going to be difficult to stick to, I think, but I will certainly endeavour to. I'm going to wrap it up there, because I'm now going to go off to the brass rehearsals down in South London to meet Ben, because there's knitting happens in the show, and I'm going to give some knitting classes to the girls in the cast who have to do some knitting. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Thank you for bearing with me while I sort of took this massive round, being around the world, and I didn't do a podcast. Actually, I did, though. I did one halfway through. But I'm hoping very much now that things will be on more even footing. I've got classes coming up all over the place, all the way around the UK. Basically, every single weekend between now and the middle of December, I'm teaching somewhere in the UK or in New York or in Minneapolis for Vogue Knitting Live there. And it's just been announced this week that I'm now off the hook and can say I will be teaching again at Edinburgh Yarn Festival next year in March 2019. I've got 4 classes going on there, so the schedule that you can start booking those from this coming Saturday, which is the 13th of October, so 4 p.m. British summer time, so 4 p.m. UK time, which is going to be 11 a.m. in New York and 3 in the morning in New Zealand, but sorry about that. But yeah, I wouldn't hang around, because those classes will disappear very quickly if my knowledge of Edinburgh Yarn Festival is anything to go by. This weekend I'm teaching Strantasia at at Craft Days in Saffron Walden, and all sorts of things going on. But thank you so much for spending time with me today. I've burbled enough. I'm going to stop. I will see you next time, and I shall just sign off by saying the usual things of while this podcast episode is now a finished object. Remember, life is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. And until next time, bye-bye.